And Jason, man, I gotta hand it to you. I imagine it must be part of your own process, and it must be somewhat cathartic to be so open about all of your struggles. But I'll echo Dan Smith's sentiment earlier on when and Norman, you as well, to have the courage to come out and speak about this. Hopefully, emboldens others to do the same and to seek the help if they need it.
Yeah, there's definitely the cathartic element, but there's also with me, I want to be held accountable, and I can't just say this stuff publicly and then act like an asshole. And if I do, I hear about it or somebody calls me out on it, and I want that to happen. I really want to overcome this stuff, and yeah, I don't know, man. We're all dealing with the same stuff. It's different. It takes different forms, but we're all dealing with the same stuff, regardless our backgrounds. Sure, we may have more baggage than other people, but I don't know. Just letting everyone know that you're in the streets with them and you're out there. I think it's like pretty easy to look at, say, a person who's done really good at something and just assume that they've been luckier than you, or they don't struggle the way that you struggle personally. They don't make mistakes the way that you do. And it's just not true. And the one thing that I've noticed, and it's been like elevating for my confidence, is just I've been around, that's kind of the cool thing about poker is you get exposed to some of the more successful people in a lot of different fields because everybody plays poker. And it's just universal. Everybody's struggling. Like, there's not that many people that are fulfilled or actually happy. And yeah, we're just all in there trying to figure it out together. And regardless if you're a billionaire or you're a guy struggling to pay your rent, we can level on that.
No doubt. I mean, there's been so many times, like I think I brought up Robin Williams earlier on in a different context. And, a lot of times I think for many people out there, we don't understand when you see somebody that is so successful, appears to be so successful. And you just like, how could somebody do that? How could somebody feel like that? They've got everything. They get the world at their fingertips. And I think it's eye-opening when you realize that we are all dealing with the same things, although processing it in different ways. I know for many people who are watching, who obviously got into hockey, the Vegas Knights goalie Robin Lehner has battled some mental issues throughout the years and is very open about it. And I think what he has been able to do for a lot of people as well, in the same way, kind of making people a little bit more comfortable talking about it and coming out with their own issues.
Yeah, and seeing that there are ways out. It's the biggest. Like I look at, I constantly think about there's obviously a massive luck element, and it's like it's really easy to kind of have this survivorship bias, and I can just say, oh, this. If you do all the stuff that I did, then things are going to work out for you the same way that they did for me. And that's just not necessarily all true. Like I've run super, super good. I've run super good at poker. I've run really, really good in like massive situations in my life where I could have been dead or in jail and things that didn't happen to me. But I truly think if you just try to, the one thing that I started doing years ago was understanding the way that decisions compound. There's compound interest to our relationships. There's compound interest to small decisions that you make every day. And if you start making good decisions and making effort with discipline and surrounding yourself with the right people, that stuff compounds into good opportunities happening. And sooner or later, stuff is going to work out for you. If you decide to get help and you actually grind out working to improve on your bad habits, then sooner or later you are going to have breakthroughs. It's just really trying to chip away and do small things every day in the right direction.
Dbuck 123 says, if players are seen as boring computers and the public does not care, it loves the generation. The truth be told, young players today are just as much degenerates and are just as much fun as the players of yesterday. We just don't hear about it. You don't see it.
Hey, 6 years ago, I had 1/4 of my entire net worth on a poker table, and I was all in for more than that after I had doubled up in a game that was 4 times the stakes that I thought it was supposed to be, and I was in the middle of a back room in the Philippines. And there's been some degenerate and I would consider myself a nit. There's definitely been some legendary degenerate moments in all of our lives, for sure. If you're a gambler and you're a high stakes poker player, you've been put in the spots. There's no doubt about it.
I mean, like I said, I do think, and I think, Jason, you just said it best, really, but I do think that we, a lot of times we always kind of romanticize the past or whatever we grew up with, or in the poker world, it might be just simple as, whatever was kind of shown to us, or, but the fact of the matter is there are some amazing characters in the game today. And, I wish I knew a way, or I wish I had the resources to kind of bring them all out. And
yeah, it comes, go ahead. Sorry.
Were you at least living in the Philippines at the time?
I wasn't. I actually was in Macau, and somebody asked me if I wanted to go play a really big game. And I said, absolutely. So I joined this guy and we flew to the Philippines, and the really big game that I was supposed to play was 4 times bigger than I thought it was going to be. And I didn't want to be rude, so I just started playing, and it was something else. I'll tell you that. It was
how
maybe
big was the game?
Longest 4 days of my life. I mean, I've played much bigger games since then. But at the time it was by far the biggest game that I'd ever played in. I think it was the equivalent of, like 3,000, 6,000 US, no limit.
And what was your normal at that point? What would be your normal stake?
I mean, I mean, this was 6 years ago. So a really big game to me to have all myself in would have been like 150, 300 US or something.
Okay. So you're talking about a game, you're talking about playing just for the equivalent for myself. So let's say I normally play 510 right now. This would literally be like me playing like 500, 1,000.
Well, it got even crazier. I mean, it got crazier to the point where, like say, if I could play 200, 400 on my own, maybe a little bigger than that, and taking shots at it if it was a good game. But this game was to the point where after the straddles were on and the one guy got stuck, I mean, the average open pre-flop was to like 40,000 US. That was like the raise pre-flop.
Which, again, I understand the concept of not wanting to be rude, but you mentioned at the beginning you had how much your net worth?
A quarter.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just, again, that's insane.
Yeah, it was crazy. I just didn't know what to do, man. It was the first time I'd met kind of this big boss, and I'd heard legendary stories about him. And he's, possibly he's one of the bigger losers in the history of poker. And I was just like, well, I've got the biggest win rate and some stuff's going to happen. And then the next thing I know, it was like noon. So we started playing at midnight, and around noon, I had 4 stacks in front of me, and the games were there was a double straddle on, and I got all in covered with kings against 2 pair on the flop and sucked out at the biggest. They only run it once there, and I sucked out for the biggest pot that I'd ever played in my life. So once again,
I can't
survivorship bias, boys.
Right, it's such a great story because because
I won.
Right. Hey, I was going to ask you though, when you played in that game, when you get there and you realize the game is 4 times bigger than you even thought it was going to be, and you're at this point, maybe a little bit uncomfortable, but you're like, I got to play anyway. What am I going to do? Did it affect your game?
Yeah. Sure.
Dan Smith, guys. And right now we've got Jason Koon, Norman Shad. I'm David Tuckman. Nick Jones picks up kings. Now he picks up aces. This is rigged. Wow. What's going on?
Wow.
Almost unfair. Hey, Jason, are you playing in this, by the way?
Yeah, I'm playing at an hour. Me and Farah are getting down with a
You, Farah,
qualifier.
and a qualifier. Okay.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that's why I'm in here, man. I got to figure out what everybody's up to, see if I got a chance to win this thing.
Do better than me. I was bad. I just out very quickly.
I was sweating a little bit of that. Saw the 9-8 suited get you.
Yeah, Chuck, I'm putting together a 15-second highlight video of your play. Which hand do you think I should highlight?
I don't think a 15-second would be a highlight. That would be the entirety of my play. Hey, Jason, you there?
I'm here.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the question again, just in case we got cut off and nobody heard it. So, I obviously, as a poker player, I know how our emotions can run. When you get to the Philippines, no, when you get to Macau, sorry, to play in this game, okay?
It was the Philippines for the big
okay,
game.
so you went from Macau to the Philippines. Sorry.
Yes.
When you get to the Philippines to play in this game that is now 4 times bigger than you even thought it was going to be, and you already thought it was going to be like a big game, you taking a shot, and now it's 4 times bigger. Even with the experience you had, did that affect the way you played?
It absolutely did, and it affected the way I felt inside too. Whenever I was all in that pot, and they were only running it once, I remember saying in my brain, I was like, "Okay, don't look sad, don't look emotional, and just say I'm going to go to sleep. Good game, guys," or whatever. That's what I was saying to myself. And I just felt, I can't even explain the feeling. I just kind of felt dead inside. It wasn't like my heart rate was up or anything. It was just like the world stood still, basically. And the craziest part of that hand was the big boss. Paul Flaw, not even the loser in the game. Paul's a shark, but he could tell it was a big pot to me. And the dealer was about to roll the river card, and he said, "Stop." And he looked at me. And I didn't know Paul very well at the time. And he said, "Hey, do you want to sweat the river card?" And so I nodded, and the dealer threw me the card, and I got to peel it. And I remember the way that, yeah, it was insane, man. And the way that it felt, I couldn't show emotion, but I backdoored a flush, and I saw the diamond, and I paused before I even flipped it over and was like, "Okay, I don't, what do we do now?" I won, but here we go. So I turned it over and I was like, "I won." And then the guy stood up and went crazy. And,
well, it would have helped if he didn't slow roll dealt the diamond.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I did say out loud, "I got there," but I don't think he didn't speak a lick of English, but it was outrageous. That was outrageous 4 days. I'll tell you that.
Were you, I mean, despite that hand, did you end up a winner for the 4 days?
Yeah, I won.
Wow. So getting back to survivorship bias, how often, we were talking about to Dan about that as well. It's just how often is that same story told? And it's, I took a shot. The game ended up being bigger than I even thought it was going to be. And I lost 70% of my bankroll. I lost it all, whatever it might've been. Yeah,
I wouldn't have lost it all, but it was definitely, and I have had really big setbacks, a few times in my life. I've definitely had a few big setbacks, bankroll wise and stuff, over bad decisions that I had made early. But I don't know. I'm kind of in Phil Galfond's camp of especially early in your career, when you see good spots, you should really go for it, because you can always earn back from the beginning, especially if you're networked and you can get backed or whatever. I was kind of let's go for it here, which, sure, I sound like a genius now. And I realize that 70% of the time after the flop, I was supposed to lose that hand, but that hand wouldn't have broken my career. It's kind of that would have sucked, and that would have been a shitty week, but I would have got back on the horse and played small. And then,
well, speaking of Phil Galfond, he and his lovely wife Farah are here as well. You're going to be playing against them. I want to just remind everybody you are watching the Run It Once Poker Double Up for Charity event. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're enjoying the show, if you're enjoying the banter, please donate. The Double Up Drive will match whatever you donate. They've come up with 10 amazing charities. You can choose where you want your money to go, and every little bit helps. So I
tried to play a little faster than I probably feel comfortable playing. I try to, if I lose a big pot, not show any emotion. I try to, but like also I want to be fun and do my best to be likable or whatever it is. So I do personally feel like I owe the poker community or the viewers something. But that's a personal bias that I have. I actually wrote my thoughts on this. I don't think players owe the viewer anything, but it's a personal decision to make. Like I understand a guy who is like, I don't care if I'm on a TV set. I put up my own money to sit down and play in this poker tournament. They're not paying me money to be here. And these are really big stakes to me. And I'm going to do my best and not be a personality whatsoever. I'm just going to do my thing. I think that they're right, but I choose to not be that way myself. I choose to not be that way myself. So I think it's what you want, but it's not necessarily like, I don't think people are being assholes by sitting down and just trying to focus and play their best and not be TV personalities. But
I don't think they're being assholes either. I do wish they took a look at the bigger picture sometimes.
Exactly. Like there's been a lot of future EV, I've made money by giving up money, a lot. And I can say that sometimes it's cost me money and I don't know if it's been a net winner for me. I think it has, but like I try to be more personable and not worry entirely so much about that hand right in the moment. And, sometimes I'm pretty serious or not so fun to watch, but I think on average, if I'm playing TV, you would just sell some of that. I try to be a person whenever I play. And there have been, hey, why don't you come play this game with me? Hey, why don't you?
Right. I was talking about, even before we get to the TV end of it, I've always had a problem with the poker pros I play with in card rooms who aren't terribly inviting to rec players, aren't terribly inviting to first timers, who are dismissive of them and don't see the bigger picture of helping the game and helping their own pocketbook, frankly, by being more welcoming to these people and sometimes losing, and then you'll win more later, or just having a better attitude towards the whole thing. And that's what I look at the TV thing also. That does, obviously it helps the game if the people are a little more engaging and less robotic. But before we get to TV, I've always thought it's a problem in the poker business that a lot of these people that I play with who are playing 5-6 times a week just don't seem to understand that they got to be a little more understanding and welcoming of the rest of us, else we don't come back.
Yeah, exactly right. It's just an awareness thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a good thing to do is take a look around at who has like been around for 10 years and who still has opportunities. And maybe that's a good way to try to model yourself. I think a lot of these guys that might not even be the best players anymore still have so much money and opportunity rolling in because they were fun,
For sure.
My advice to poker players is if you're not like naturally comfortable communicating with people, then that's fine. You don't have to be something you're not. But if you are naturally okay with it, then you should let yourself communicate and try to represent the game in a positive light that keeps people wanting to come back. I don't think you have to be fake in any way, but you also, it's not required to be a robot. And I think if you learn how to play loose and learn how to play in a way where you feel more natural, it's better long-term for your own poker game too. It's really exhausting sitting around trying to be a stiff robot for 12 hours every day.
Flush over flush. Wow. That is unfortunate for Marley. And Mr. Curtin is going to win that one. No, that's the thing. That the storytelling from back then. I mean, early on the WPT, I remember sitting with my girlfriend and her family, and we'd watch Travel Channel, and we learned about the professor, and we learned about all these different characters, and we got to know who they were, and
Exactly.
all the credit to them for they made us care about these characters. the poker was fun and it made me want to play poker, but I really wanted to know more about these just like living legends that they were creating and building in my mind. The Phil Ivies, the Antonio Esfandiaris, the Phil Hellmuths of the world. And I got to learn about all these different people through, Mike Sexton and through Norman Shad. And, for those reasons, then of course, obviously that kind of went into, the 2000s where there was a lot of money behind it and you were building up these names. And for a reason, hey, listen, these are going to be the face of our company. Let's make them stars. And unfortunately, that's not the approach today. And there's no doubt in my mind that the characters of today's game are as compelling as the players back then, but we don't get to hear those stories.
Yeah, I would go one step further and say that some old school players have a personal vendetta against these younger, more talented, more hungry guys because they don't want to let go of being known as these, a great player or a great personality. And they have so much influence to what the masses think that we're kind of stuck in the past in a lot of ways. Yeah, I think that the younger, a lot of these guys really do deserve their due. You take a guy like Isaac Haxton, he's been in Bobby's room for the last 5 years. He can play 15 different games well. He's maybe the smartest poker player to have ever lived. And sure, he's a well-known poker player, but this guy isn't. Tell me that there couldn't be a story on a player like that. His dad said whenever he was a newborn, like I can't remember, under a year old, he's pushing him down the street in a stroller in his book, and he hears Isaac go moon, and he looks up and like baby Isaac's pointing at the moon in the sky, saying moon, like way before kids are supposed to be talking. Like he's like a supercomputer. And there's lots of guys like that we could be telling stories about and could be new age superstars.